Welcome to Quilter's Architect. My name is Mark, and in this video I'm continuing my work on the pop beads quilt pattern. And in the last video I demonstrated how to make each of the blocks with the different fabric combinations. And here you can see I have my stacks of 20 of this variation on the spool block. I also have the same for these two variations on the snowball block. There are 21 of these variations of the spool block. In today's video, I'm going to assemble the quilt. To start putting our rows together, what I'm going to do is looking at page 7 of our quilt pattern, where it talks about assembling the first 4 rows and has figure A5, just confirming that our spool blocks are turned properly with the smoke is at the top and bottom. And then we have one of our Tula pink cat fabric snowball blocks to the right of that. Just making sure we have our blocks arranged properly, and then we'll join these together to form our first 4-patch. Okay, so there's my first 4-patch in rows 1 and 2, and time to move on to the second 4-patch. So I'm going to show you something that you don't want to do if you use this Tula pink fabric. So I paid attention to the larger cat in this block and I turned it up. But on this one, I turned the cats upside down. They're kind of turned 2 different ways, but if you do turn the fabric over, you'll see that most of them are upright this way, and then there's the other ones that are going up or down. If you're using this Tula pink fabric, you'll want to pay attention to the cats being turned the right way, unless it doesn't matter to you. But I thought I would turn all of them upright as I was making the quilt, and I missed that on the one fabric, so I'll fix that. So here's the second 4-patch in rows 1 and 2, and I did rip apart this seam to correct the cat block that I had turned upside down, and I definitely think it looks better with the cats turned upright, even though they're small and there's some variation on how they're turned. Some are climbing up, some are climbing down, but there are some who are standing or sitting. So I thought that Tula pink fabric would look better if those cats were turned correctly. So on to the next 4-patch for rows 1 and 2. So here is the third 4-patch in rows 1 and 2, and now I'm going to move on to the fourth 4-patch in rows 1 and 2. So I decided to go with a 6-patch for the last set of blocks in rows 1 and 2 because there's an odd number of blocks going across the quilt. So there is my 6-patch. Now I'm going to join all the 4 patches and 6 patches together to form rows 1 and 2. And there's one part of these as I'm joining these 4 patches together that I'm pinning. That's this where this 45 degree comes in from the 2 rows together. And here are rows 1 and 2 all put together. Nice to see this quilt starting to come together. Okay, now that I have rows 1 and 2 put together, I'm going to move on to rows 3 and 4. Here on page 7, we're still following the visual representation of how the blocks go together. I have the first 4 patch laid out here for rows 3 and 4. Time to start sewing some more blocks together. And again, always watching our cats to make sure that they're turned or oriented upwards. Easy to get that wrong. Okay, so there's the first 4 patch of blocks in rows 3 and 4, and I will continue on with the other 4 patches and single 6 patch at the end of the 2 rows. Okay, so here is the second 4 patch in rows 3 and 4. Time to move on to the third 4 patch. Okay, so there is the third 4 patch in rows 3 and 4. On to the 6 patch to complete the last set of blocks in rows 3 and 4. So here is my 6 patch, the last few blocks in rows 3 and 4. I'm going to join the 4 patches and the 6 patch together now to form the entire set of rows 3 and 4. Here, rows 3 and 4, I think as these rows start to come together more, we'll see the pop beads effect. Time to join rows 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 together to form the top half of the quilt. And here's the top half of the quilt. Looking nice. Now that we've completed the top 4 rows of the quilt, it's time to move on to page 8. And we have figure A6, which shows us how to arrange our blocks as we assemble them. I'm going to start with rows 5 and 6. Got to keep an eye on yourself. Real easy to turn these spool blocks where the darker, smoke color instead of the silver is on the side. That would not be right. So we got to watch ourselves. So I need one of my green Tula pink blocks, and I need a white snowball block also. And I'm double checking myself now. My cats are turned the right way. My spool blocks are turned the right way. And I have the blocks white, charcoal, green. Okay, so do the same thing as I did before. Join these together. Okay, so there is the first 4 patch for rows 5 and 6. The remaining 4 patches and 1 6 patch in this set of rows. Okay, so here is the second 4 patch from rows 5 and 6. I'm going to move on to the third 4 patch. Okay, so there is the third 4 patch for rows 5 and 6. Now I just need to complete the 6 patch at the end to put together the last set of 3 blocks in the 2 rows. Okay, here is my 6 patch at the end of rows 5 and 6. Now I'm going to join the 4 patches and 6 patch together to form the entire rows 5 and 6. And there are rows 5 and 6. I'm liking this Tula pink fabric. Now moving on to rows 7 and 8, I'm going to lay the first set of 4 patches out here. Kind of been trying to watch these blocks to vary the cat or the center square in the block so that it's not all the same in the same spot. I have the 2 wine and magenta from the pattern, in my case the Tula pink with the cat. And then I need a white snowball on the top right and a green one on the bottom left. All my cats are turned up. All right. I'm going to join these blocks together in this first 4 patch of rows 7 and 8. Okay, there's the first 4 patch set of blocks in rows 7 and 8. I will move on to the other 4 patches. Okay, so here is the second 4 patch for rows 7 and 8. I'm going to move on to the third 4 patch. Okay, so here's the third 4 patch for rows 7 and 8. I'm going to move on to the last 6 patch, and then we'll be able to put rows 7 and 8 together. And here's my 6 patch to complete the blocks in rows 7 and 8. Here rows 7 and 8 join together, getting close to the last row here. And here's the final row, row 9, joined together. Here we have rows 5 and 6, 7 and 8, and 9 on the floor. I'll join all these together to form the bottom half of the quilt. And here's the bottom half of the quilt, rows 5 through 9 joined together. Here are the top and bottom halves of the quilt. Next I'm going to join these together. So here's the entire inner quilt with the top and bottom halves joined together. Okay, so now that we have the inner quilt done, it's time to make our quilt borders, and we'll start with our side borders. And I laid out here the pieces of fabric that I'll construct the border from. So I have in the silver fabric a strip. This would be called Lagoon on the quilt pattern. This is Meadow is a strip, and this charcoal square, the smoke strip, and once again the Lagoon square and the charcoal strip. Looking at page 10, it tells us to join pieces B, G, I, J, K, and M to make the side borders. And we make 2 of these, and we have the illustration of figure A8. So I put them here in order, and I'll just join all these together. Okay, so here is our side border. And I'm going to pin this to the quilt so that I can sew it to the quilt. I'm pinning this at the top and bottom first, and then I'll pin it in the middle. And as far as this pinning goes, because we're going to pick the quilt up, fold it, carry it, this is not going to stay, the edge probably won't stay exact this way. But it's more important about the length, right? We're trying to make sure that our border is evenly spread out or distributed with the inner quilt so that we don't get bunching or things like that. So the middle, I pinned it as well, and then I'm going to pin 2 places in between the middle and the top and bottom as well. I'm also trying to place these pins with the idea that I'm going to be taking them out with it turned over, because we usually turn our quilt over so that we have all our seams facing us, so we can make sure the seams go through the presser foot right and don't get bent over. So that's why I'm sticking the pin from the underside. And for this, I like these longer pins. It seems like the shorter pins, you only get one stick almost, or maybe 2, but with this, you can do 2 or 3 times at least. Makes the pin stay a little better. So once I get that pinned, I'm going to turn it over, put it on the floor, and then I'm going to roll, kind of put it in an accordion fold so that I can run it through the sewing machine. Just making sure it's turned face to face. Wouldn't want to sew that entire border down through there and find out I turned it wrong side to face. Be a lot of ripping. Here's a quick look at the quilt with the left and right borders joined. Okay, it's time to move on to our top and bottom borders. And looking at page 11 in figure A9, we can see how they're arranged within the border, the individual pieces. And here we're using pieces B, G, I, J, K, M, and N. And so basically we're just going to arrange them in this order and join them together. Since this is real long and I can't lay them all out and show them, I turned the strips sideways. So here with the fabric choices that I made, I have these 2 blocks from the Tula pink fabric on the outside, and these are from Tula pink. And then you can see the other strips with the silver, the meadow, the smoke, and the charcoal, and then the 3.5-inch squares in between along the border. So time to join these together. Okay, so here is our top or bottom border, depending on which way we decide to use it. I just made one so far. And we will pin this on the quilt and join them together. If you don't want to become Mark the Ripper like me, as I was making this quilt, I've been struggling with paying good attention to the quilt pattern. It's sad, isn't it? If you notice on the quilt pattern, the border is kind of like alternating the colors in like a rotating fashion, where dark starts in the corner going to light, and then same again starting from that next corner, dark to light, and so on around the quilt. When I sewed the side borders on, I sewed them both the same with the dark at the top. I guess it could have been okay, but would have altered the look of the quilt and not been true to the pattern. So I had to rip the right side border off and turn it around to put it oriented correctly. And so I just thought I'd bring this up as a reminder to anyone else who decides they want to make this quilt and they want it to match the way the pattern's laid out, that pay attention to where your sequence of fabrics start in the border if you decide to follow this type of border with strips and blocks alternating in fabric. Now that I have the quilt top together, you can really see the pop beads visual effect, and I really like that. I also like the way the borders turned out. I hope you enjoyed watching me put this quilt together. I encourage you to download the pattern and make it yourself. Maybe you have some great fabric that would go well with this pattern. I also encourage you to subscribe to my channel if you enjoy videos like this and also enjoy receiving free quilt patterns. Please leave your comments for my benefit as well as others. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. And in the meantime, I'm wishing you happy sewing and beautiful finishes.